All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the PPP Access Granted webinar sponsored by Fulton Bank. We would like to thank everyone for being in attendance tonight. My name is Floyd E. Miller II. I'm the president and CEO of the Metropolitan Business League. It's a pleasure to be your moderator for tonight. I'd like to also thank all of the partnering organizations and agencies that were part of this collaboration. But before we get started, we have a few house rules that I'd like to go over. First of all, when we have our speakers presenting, please make sure you mute your microphones. And if you have questions, you will be able to place them in the chat, and we have a team member that will retrieve those questions and we will present those to the speakers for tonight. So again, I want to thank you all for being in attendance tonight. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I would like to introduce to you now our first speaker, Ms. Latoya Christian. She's the market manager for Fulton Bank. And so please join me in welcoming Ms. Latoya Christian.
Thank you, Floyd. Hello, everyone. I am Latoya Christian. I am the market manager for the Central Virginia area of Fulton Bank. My office is located at 9030 Stony Point Parkway, Suite 150 in Richmond, Virginia. I have worked in the banking industry for over 20 years. I have been fortunate to spend most of my banking career partnering with the small business community and local organizations. It has been my honor to help small businesses and organizations such as you to meet their individual and business goals. At Fulton Bank, we have a few employees. Fulton Bank, we have been helping our clients and businesses within the communities we serve apply for the Payment Protection Program. Today, we have a few employees on the call who will discuss resources, best practices, and lessons learned along the way, and most importantly, serve as a resource to all of you. Now, I will pass it over to Steve to introduce himself.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Stephen Markley. I am the Fulton Bank Small Business Development Manager, and I work very closely with a number of Fulton colleagues and the SBA to help provide the Paycheck Protection Program. I've been working on the program since its inception, and here tonight to give you a whole bunch of information, some insights, tips of what to do and tips of what not to do to help you through the process. I've been in banking for a really long time, and I've specialized in small business during my banking career. So thanks for having me. And I'd like to introduce Tara Jones. Tara.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Hello, everyone. I am Tara Jones, and I am the Financial Center Manager in the Hampton Roads area. My office is in Virginia Beach in the Lansdowne Commons area for those that are familiar. I have been in banking for about 21 years, and I'm currently in my 15th year with Fulton Bank. During my tenure with Fulton Bank, I have dedicated my time to serving the small business community through financial literacy, mentorship, and community involvement. And I look forward to being a continued resource for local business owners as they navigate through our current changing climate. I will now pass the program back to Latoya Christian to review the agenda and the Paycheck Protection Program background.
Thank you, Tara. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we're going to learn today. So I'm just going to do a quick review of what's on our agenda. Steve? Okay. So today, what we're going to learn is around Paycheck Protection Program and background, who qualifies, who does not qualify, how to apply, some of the common errors and helpful tips, Fulton Bank process, loan forgiveness, and additional resources. Next slide. So as we get into the Paycheck Protection Program, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about the first draw loans and the second draw loans. Next slide, please. So the first draw loans, the program itself, it was designed to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on payroll. So when you think about the first draw loans, that is something that's available to customers who did not previously receive a PPP loan, our Paycheck Protection Program. And the second draw loans are available to customers who received a previous PPP loan and will or have used the full amount only for authorized uses. So these individuals have no more than 300 employees and can demonstrate at least 25 reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters in 2019 and 2020. Next slide, please. So as we talk a little bit more about how each of the PPP loans are funded, remember the focus is to keep people employed. However, there are other permissible uses. So let's talk about them. So we have employment. This is where 60% of the amount you're approved for should go towards employment. So that includes payroll costs, benefits, worker protection costs related to COVID-19. The remainder of it can be a mixture of the process, which is mortgage, interest, rent, utilities, certain supplier costs and expense for operations, and damages, which includes uninsured properties, damages caused by looting or vandalism during 2020. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Tara, where she will talk a little bit more about who qualifies.
Who qualifies? Any business, sole proprietors, independent contractors, 501c3 and 501c6 nonprofit organizations, 50C119, veteran organizations. And as far as the size dependent, we would definitely direct you to the SBA's website where they have tools to help you determine if your business qualifies as a small business. And of course, the SBA does assign size standards to each of the next code. Next slide, please. So who does not qualify? Next slide, please. So the slide lists about 3 items that can exclude an applicant from applying. Well, the first one has to do with financial standing. The applicant or any owner participating in the transaction that is suspended, debarred, declared ineligible by any federal agency or presently involved in any kind of bankruptcy, that could exclude them from being able to apply for the PPP. The second one is being delinquent. If any that are involved obtained a loan with the SBA or any federal agency, and this does not include student loans, if the loan is currently delinquent or has defaulted in the last 7 years, that can exclude them too as well. And the last one is legal standing. So I'm not going to read both paragraphs verbatim, but basically the gist is if the applicant, individual, or any individual owning 20% or more are subjected to indictment of criminal charges presently on probation or parole, and it does specifically name felonies, including fraud, bribery, embezzlement, or false statements for federal assistance within the last 5 years can also be excluded from applying to as well. So let's move into how can I apply. Next slide, please. Well, if you are currently a Fulton Bank customer, okay, first of all, you must first be a customer of the bank. So if you currently already have a business account with us, with Fulton Bank, you'll be able to follow the link on our website and submit the PPP application. Now, for those of you all that do not have an account, we are requiring you to open up a business deposit account. Now, the funds from the PPP loan will be deposited to that account. And to begin the new account process, there are documents that you would need to supply the bank. So if you are a sole proprietor operating under a DBA name, we will need the assumed name certificate, state ID, either driver's license or ID card or passport. And if you're using an EIN instead of your social security number, we will need an EIN letter from the IRS. Now, if you file as an LLC, S Corp, or corporation, you will need that EIN letter from the IRS, and I believe it's a Form SS4, in either the Articles of Organization or the State Corporation Commission document with the seal. Now, independent contractors, that have not necessarily established an entity, can open up a personal account with us to establish themselves as a customer, and we will allow them also to apply for the PPP loan. Now, we have a couple of ways that you can get that deposit account set up. You can either schedule an appointment through our website, which is www.fultonbank.com, and it will help to assist you in finding the closest Fulton Bank location to your home or office. Or you can contact myself. Again, I am Tara Jones with businesses in the Hampton Roads area, or my colleague, Latoya Christian, for businesses in the Richmond area. Latoya and I will be glad to work as your personal banker to guide you through the process. Now, once the account is open in our banking system, then you'll be able to move forward with filling out the PPP loan application pretty quickly. So the application for the first draw loan and the second draw loan is located through a link on the Fulton Bank website under PPP updates, and the SBA application has been uploaded to a program called DocuSign, and this allows us to gather any additional required documents if needed, as well as signatures and initials on loans. Now, I think this is a perfect place for us to turn it over to Steve Markley. He's going to speak about application tips, common errors, and he'll also be pulling up a sample of the application to walk everyone through.
Well, good evening, everybody. And, it's interesting as we talk about Paycheck Protection Program. I think there's a lot of myths out there as it relates to how do I apply, and there's a whole bunch of common errors. And what we want to talk through tonight is just give you some nuggets of information to help you prepare for an application if you haven't yet applied, provide some guidance, talk through how do you calculate your loan amounts and that sort of stuff. It's really to help you feel a little bit better about the process. It's interesting as I've talked to folks and I present it in other areas that Fulton Bank does business, I feel like there's some common myths out there. And one of them is I've heard a couple of folks say, hey, I had something happen before and my credit maybe isn't the best. Am I still eligible to apply? And the answer is yes. It's really not, this isn't a look at your credit and how you've performed in the past. It's really a look at how are you performing and how are you keeping people employed? Remember, Paycheck Protection is designed to help business owners keep themselves in business and their families, their employees and families on payroll. So credit is not a knockout for you as you go through the application process. Another thing I've seen folks do is they've just picked a number. They said, I'm going to apply for, pick a number and put that down. There's actually some methods behind the calculations that we're going to talk through also. I try to, when I present PPP, I try to relate to other folks I've spoken with. And I had a conversation with an individual the other day who owns a small contracting place. And the conversation we had was, the gentleman was saying, hey, I heard I can apply for X number of dollars. And as we stepped back and we walked him through the calculations, the advice that he got maybe wasn't the best, and he was actually off point by a considerable amount of money. So, credit isn't a factor, but what is important is making sure you understand your financial situation, making sure that you have your tax returns handy, and making sure that you follow the guidance with the Paycheck Protection Program. Because if you don't, it can create a whole host of challenges and even slow down your ability to get access to funding to help keep your business on point. So let's kind of dive in. And I mentioned some of the common errors and helpful tips. We'll talk about that also. The application itself, and there's two new applications. So my time's flying by. On the 22nd of February, President Biden and Vice President Harris had announced the revision to the Paycheck Protection Program. And what that program did is it put a hold on large employers and prohibited them from applying for Paycheck Protection. So if you had 20 or more employees for a 2-week period of time, you were not eligible to apply for Paycheck Protection. So what the program did is it opened up the program to small employer businesses, small employer firms, and it allowed them to apply for a Paycheck Protection Program. One of the myths out there, though, is that that program did expire on the 9th, But as a self-employed individual, as an independent contractor, and as a sole proprietor, you're still able to apply for a Paycheck Protection Program through the end of March, through March 31st. That's when the official Paycheck Protection Program ends at this time. The information that was presented by the Biden-Harris administration, it also altered some of the applications. So there's now 2 applications that we're going to talk through, and depending on your business structure and how you file your taxes will affect which application you use. So we'll talk through that today as well. And there's just one thought, as you go through these applications, and you'll see there's a lot of information that's asked of you if you haven't already applied. It's really important that you take your time and you slow down. So it's not like you when you were in high school and you were taking the assessments test and you had to mark the dots and you wanted to go hang out with your friends and you want to get that through that as quick as possible, like I did. Take your time with it. There's a lot of questions, and depending upon how you answer them, and we'll talk about them shortly, can really affect your ability to access your Paycheck Protection loan. So let's dive in. So if you are a non-Schedule C filer, so you are you're not a sole proprietor, you're an S corporation, a C corporation, a limited liability corporation, a nonprofit, you're going to choose the non-Schedule C application. Depending on which lender you go to, hopefully it's Fulton Bank. We'd love to have you come talk to us and talk to our folks. But if it's not Fulton or any bank, you're going to, or any lender, you're going to want to pick, if you match the organization types I just mentioned, you're going to want to choose the non-Schedule C application. A couple of things that have gotten folks tripped up and slowed down. Don't use a PO box. If you have one, great, but you want to use your physical address that your business is operating out of and located at. If you use a PO box, it'll slow your application down and could even affect your access to the quick approval. Also, really one thing important here is you want to pay attention to your tax ID. So if you are filing your taxes and you're filing your business taxes using your personal tax ID, make sure you get it right, the right cadence. So it's 123-45-6789. Or if you're filing it using your EIN number, it's 12-345-6789. So you want to make sure that you get that right. It's really, really important that you do so. And you want to make sure every field's filled out, right? It's important for you to identify the fields. They're all used in helping provide a good experience for you, providing you information on the loan. So just a real quick there. And this is probably the biggest myth of all, is this or the mystery, I should say. How do I calculate the amount? Oh my goodness, it's a lot of information. I'll tell you this. So there are helpful tools that are out there that have been put out by the SBA. I'm going to share one just because I want to show you what it looks like. So there's a document that's out there, and it helps you kind of calculate the amount. So when I look at this here, I look for my organization type. So let's just say let's scroll through this thing for a quick second here. I might make you a little motion sick, so please bear with me. Let's say I'm a partnership and I want to figure out how do I apply for my loan. Well, I can look at this document. It's on the SBA website or the U.S. Treasury website, both under the Paycheck Protection small business area. And it actually walks you through it. It tells you, hey, if you're an LLC or a partnership, here's how I apply for the loan. It goes through, it tells me, look at your step one, look at your 2019 payroll costs. And it goes through, and these documents are published, they're readily available for you. You have access to them. You can look through them and they'll just give you it helps you calculate the amount step by step, and it gives you the methodology to help you calculate your loan. So I'm sharing this briefly with you because I think it's a really good tool. As bankers, when folks ask us for a little bit of help and they're not quite sure, these are actually the documents that we refer back to. So I would highly suggest, if you haven't looked at them, to please do so. I was so excited I got ahead of myself here. So whoops, let's get to the right spot. So the way your loan is calculated, you determine your average monthly payroll, and that those steps I just shared with you are used to help calculate that average monthly payroll. And then you multiply it times 2.5, and that's the maximum loan that you can get for a Paycheck Protection loan using in the first draw program. And then it asks for you how you intend to use the funds, and it asks for your ownership structure. So those are all important things. You want to make sure you have all the lines filled out on these applications. Some of you may have already gotten a Paycheck Protection loan last year through rounds 1 or 2 funding, and there is a second draw application. Latoya mentioned a short while ago that there's 2 application types. There's a first draw and there's a second draw. The second draw calculations are very similar. However, if you are in a hospitality industry and your business is under what's known as NACE Code 72, which is your industry classification, you can use 3.5 times or 3.5 times your average monthly payroll to calculate your amount. So where that gets a little confusing, reach out to your financial advisor, reach out to Latoya, and reach out to Tara. They certainly are a resource and can help you navigate. So that's the non-Schedule C filer. Additionally, there are questions that every applicant's required to answer. And depending on how you answer them, yes or no, can create an automatic denial for your application with the SBA. So it's really, really important that you take your time with it. If you answer yes to questions 1, 2, 5, or 6, you're rendered ineligible. And I would just advise, as you're doing this, I know my mom and dad always told me, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Be truthful with these applications. If you don't want to get yourself in a spot where you're getting funds, and there could be some repercussions if you don't fill this out the right way. So take your time, read through it, make sure you understand the questions that are being asked, and answer them truthfully. So the new application that was released, and it actually came out last Wednesday, I believe it was the 6th, and it came out in the afternoon, was an addendum to an interim final rule by the SBA that allowed business owners that are Schedule C filers, that are either a sole proprietor, an independent contractor, or self-employed individual, an alternative method for them to calculate their Paycheck Protection. And again, I mentioned this earlier on, I'll say it again, you're still eligible if you're in one of these 3 business structures to still apply for a Paycheck Protection. So please, while the moratorium, as I mentioned earlier, for large employers ended on the 9th, you are still eligible. There are still funds available, and we want to help you get access to capital to help you run your business. So in this process, it looks at calculations a little bit differently, and it's going to use your Schedule C. It's going to use your Schedule C on your tax return to calculate your gross amount. When you look at it, you can use either tax year 2019 or you can use tax year 2020 as your basis. You have the option to choose which year you want to use. I've talked to business customers, and some use 2019, some use 2020. I'd suggest if you're looking at the application that you look at it both ways and determine what's the best benefit for you as a business owner. You're going to want to list the number of employees, and including yourself as the owner. So it's real important, again, take your time with this, make sure you list it the right way. And I should mention one other thing too here. Some of you have businesses and you're operating them and you have a trade name or doing business as, it's important to list them here. So if I was Steve Markley Plumber and I called myself Steve's Plumbing, Steve's Best Plumbing, I would list Steve's Best Plumbing as my trade name, and my business name I would list as myself. I'm the owner. The business is me. So this is really, really important, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time here for you to talk through this here. So if I am a self-employed, independent, or sole proprietor, and I have no employees, I'm just looking at myself, the top line of the application is a spot that you're going to want to choose. So it asks you in the first box, it says, hey, tell me your gross income from your line C, your Schedule C on your 1040, whether it's 2019 or 2020. And I'm going to want to list that there. So if it was $100,000, we list $100,000. Then I divide it by 12. So $100,000 just so happens to be $8,333.33 when you divide 100,000 by 12. I know that because I've done 1,000 of these, I think. And you choose the lesser of the two. So if I made $200,000 last year on my Schedule C on line 7, that number would be $16,666.66. Well, this says here the most I can use is $8,333.33. So we're going to want to fill that in there if we made over $100,000 on our line 7 Schedule C. Then I'm going to want to multiply that times 2.5, and that's the amount that I can borrow or request to borrow through the Paycheck Protection Program. Again, so I mentioned early on, I mentioned my conversation with the gentleman I spoke with, and he said, hey, I want $100,000. The reality of it is there's actually guidance on how to calculate your amount. And I just remind each of you to take your time with it, do the math, use your calculator. If you need to use your toes and fingers, then use your toes and fingers, but definitely spend your time with it. Now, some of us have employees, right? So we're self-employed. We've got a few folks working for us, and we pay them through, we pay them a paycheck and everything like that. So there's an option too, if I want to pay somebody, if I have employees that I pay, and it actually guides you on how to calculate the amount that you are going to put on your application. So a couple extra steps here on the application. So the first things first is we've got to look at our Schedule C tax return. So I have a sample copy of it here. This is a 2020 version. And I'm going to look at line 7. So line 7 is my gross income. Now, remember, we've got employees, right? So we've got to figure out their calculations as well. So this tells me that it says, okay, I've got my line 7. That's my income, my gross income. I've got to deduct out some stuff to help me figure out how much I'm personally, I can access myself. So I deduct out lines 14, lines 19, and lines 26, which are benefits, pension and profit sharing plan, and wages paid to my employees. I deduct all those out, and that's going to give me a number. That's my basis number. And then just like in the prior example, I divide that by 12, and I list that number there. It can't be more than $8,333. Then it tells me what's my average monthly payroll for my employees. So some of you may use a payroll service. Some of you may use Paychecks or ADP or Payday. There's a whole host of lending programs that are out there. Or you might do it yourself. But you're going to want to figure out what exactly is my average monthly payroll for my employees. Now, not me. I'm the owner. Take me out of it. I've already figured that out in those first two boxes. I want to figure out how much what's my average payroll for my employees. So whatever that 120,000, if that's your average payroll, divide that by 12. That's $10,000, right? Then it tells me go ahead and add lines B and C. So I add my $8,333.33. In the example I used, I add 10,000, so 18,333. I multiply that times 2.5. Or if I'm a second draw applicant, I multiply it times 3.5 if I fit that industry, the hospitality industry code. And that's the maximum amount that I can request through the Paycheck Protection Program. So the SBA has done a really nice job inside the application on the last few pages of it with this current version. There's a guidance on how to calculate the loan. There's step-by-step. It does exactly what I did. It tells you step-by-step. It kind of slows it down. But again, spend some time with this. If you're not sure, if you haven't looked at your tax return before, that's okay. Honestly, there's times where I don't want to look at my tax return, but if you haven't looked at it, that's okay. We have some folks here that can help you out and point you in the right direction. So I spent a lot of time here on the Schedule C filer because it's really important. It's new. It hasn't been available all that long, and some of the forms just got released out to lenders last week. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time with y'all just to share that and talk it through. So once we've done all that stuff, and by the way, just real quick, whether I file Schedule C or I pick the regular application, these questions here are still on the application. So please make sure you spend some time on them and fill them out. And then one other thing you're going to see on the application, which we didn't point out in our presentation here, is a demographics spot. And what that demographics does is it helps us understand, are we helping our community? Is the SBA providing funding and helping out business owners and helping them get access to Paycheck Protection? So albeit optional, but please take some time to fill it out. It is helpful. It helps us make sure that we're doing the right things and make sure we're lending to our business community. So the application itself, we take all that stuff out, we fill it all out, and we're ready to roll. So let me talk to you just briefly about Fulton Bank's process. And I'll add that a number of lenders have similar processes. Most use some form of digital technology to apply. At Fulton, we have a digital application that's on our Fulton Bank website. So you could visit fultonbank.com, and you'll see that there's a spot that we talk about COVID resources for businesses and consumers. And there's actually a link for our application and very easy to log on. It's secure. It's through, uses DocuSign technology. You've probably done that before where you verify who you are, and it helps you kind of walk through the process. So again, I mentioned it's an online application. Take some time with it. I've said that a few times, and I'll say it probably a couple more times before we enter time this evening together. When you apply, you'll get communication from Fulton Bank that says, hey, we've got your application. We're reviewing it. If there's anything missing in your application, we need a little bit more information, we're not sure quite what you had asked for, or the math doesn't add up, we take a look at it and we get back to you. So we'll provide you an application status. And then timing itself, is based on, is a function of the number of applications that are being submitted to the SBA for review. So while we're hopeful to turn the application around for you and get funding in your account as quick as possible, it usually is a several-day lag from the time you apply to the time once everything's approved and funded for that to happen. So if you apply, and no matter whom the lender is, hopefully that's Fulton, but no matter whom the lender is, you're going to see a several-day delay before your application is finalized. So that's the application process in a nutshell. Now, Paycheck Protection has two really, really important parts to it. So the first things first, you apply for the funds. Everything goes well, you're approved for the funds. There's a second step to this. And the second step to this is that you have to apply for forgiveness. If you don't apply for forgiveness, the Paycheck Protection program becomes a Paycheck Protection loan. And then you're then responsible for paying back principal and interest at a rate of 1% up over a 5-year period of time. So the forgiveness part is probably more important once you go through the application than the application itself. So we'll talk briefly about it tonight. It probably could warrant a follow-up discussion because there are lots of nuggets of information about loan forgiveness. But let's talk just briefly about it to make sure that we close the loop and that you understand the other side of the Paycheck Protection program process. So after you apply for this darn loan and we get you approved and the funds are in your account, you have 10 months from the time that you got the money from the end of what's called your covered period. And that's the period of time that you're going to use these funds to maintain payroll and the like. And it's a period, the forgiveness timeline, so it's 10 months, and you have 8 to 24 weeks to use the funds. So again, probably a good follow-up for us from this evening's call to talk through the timeline. And then the resources, that same U.S. Treasury website or the SBA website, I say them interchangeable because they have the same information, albeit organized a little bit differently. There's lots of really, really, really good stuff out there. So I would encourage you to visit either site and both if you have a little bit of time. And there's a host of resources that are out there for you to figure out the forgiveness part. And Tara and Latoya are great resources to help you navigate that other side of the Paycheck Protection Program. So 2 parts: application 1, forgiveness 2, and both, like I said, are very equally are very important to the process. If you apply for the loan and you use the funds as they are intended to be used, so for payroll, for maintaining rent, utilities, and operating expenses, and certain covered costs as they relate to the COVID pandemic, and your loan's fully approved for forgiveness, the funds that you've gotten, you're not responsible to pay back to the SBA or to a lender. So really a second part that's just super darn important, and I can't emphasize it enough. So I mentioned resources. There are a host of resources that are out there. Please contact Fulton Bank if you have questions. You can reach Tara, you can reach Latoya. We have a customer inquiry thing. So if you're doing it late at night, you're running your business during the day and you're home and you're maybe sipping on a glass of wine, doing your books, you could submit an inquiry into our team, and one of our team members will reach back out to you and provide you some guidance and help you through the process. You can look at the blank applications. The applications, if you didn't want to apply, but you wanted to just kind of play around with the numbers a little bit and see what it might look like for you, you can visit the SBA website or the U.S. Treasury, and both sites have each of the applications that are out there in their entireties for you. There's also the documents for the Schedule C filer, so you can look at that as well. There's tools to help you calculate your loan amount. I showed you one of them. And it's really handy, and it's tailored to you. So if you're a single member LLC or you're an S corporation or C corporation, it tells you how to calculate your amount and how to do what you do. And then there's a host of FAQs that are available to you as a business owner, both on the application side and also on the forgiveness side. And I think we're up to like 54 or 55, maybe 57 line items of questions that others have posed and wanted some clarity on. So there's a whole bunch of information out there for you as a business owner, as a business advocate, to help your colleagues, peers, friends to figure out, is Paycheck Protection right for them, and help them calculate the amounts. So in our presentation, Latoya and Tara both introduced themselves. They are awesome resources. I've worked with both of them now for the last year in Paycheck Protection, and are great folks to reach out to. And I'm available also too, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me as well. And just wanted to take a few minutes and thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you on behalf of all of my colleagues at Fulton Bank for spending a little bit of time with us to learn about the Paycheck Protection Program. We do want to answer questions, and Mr. Floyd Miller is going to provide a little bit more, kind of host us and navigate them. So, Mr. Miller, I'll turn the conversation back to you, if that's all right.
All right. That was an excellent presentation. And you all that are participating tonight, I truly encourage you to ask your questions. We have some incredible experts in the financial arena here tonight. And so again, I encourage you to put your questions in the chat. Tasha will read those out, and I'm sure you're going to get great information from our speakers. So Tasha, do we have any questions in the chat?
I do. The first question is from Pat F. F as in Frank. And her question is, can you elaborate on the legal clause dealing with felonies? Who wants to take that?
Hi, Pat. Yeah, I can take that, Pat. So the guidance just changed, and on the application, let me see if I can just pull that up real quick for us to refer back to. On the application itself, there was a recent change to the guidance there, and it does allow for some leeway. I've seen a couple scenarios where there are felony situations where individuals have applied And there are some scenarios where you can not dispute, but provide context around your specific situation and work with that. I would tell you, if you're not certain, to be honest, because there's so many different variables and the such, if you're not certain, apply. And we can talk through or work through anything that comes up that maybe is we're not certain about or we need to clarify. I can think of a couple instances where we had an individual apply, some unfortunate things happened in their background, and we were able to work with them and provide some guidance and get them through the process. So while there are some knockouts that if you have been convicted of felony that will prohibit you from being or granting you access, there are some ways to navigate that process. I would be more than happy to, as would Latoya and Tara, talk very specific to you about that scenario and help provide a little bit more insight. So I'm not sure if I'm fully answering the question, but there are some ways to navigate that scenario if we need to. Again, we have to follow the rules by the SBA, but there are some unique instances where we can work around that. Pat, I hope that answers your question. And please, by all means, reach out to us. We can talk further.
Yeah, that was an excellent question, Pat Foster. And so, Tasha, do we have any more?
Yes, we have plenty more.
Great.
Another question is from Nikki Tolbert, and the question is it true that not all banks have access to these funds or applications?
Some lenders have chosen not to participate in the Paycheck Protection program in the sense that they're doing the work themselves. There are a host of lenders that are out there. Some lenders have partnered with third-party providers to offer Paycheck Protection loans. Others have done it themselves. Some have something in between. So there are some lenders that have made business decisions based on the economics of the program to not offer the program. I'll tell you all, it is very time intensive, and some banks just have made a decision that they wanted to outsource it. But a number of banks are, a number of lenders are, and there's a whole host of opportunities to look at them. One thing I'll mention, and I forgot to mention in my presentation, but it kind of ties into this. So it's one Paycheck Protection loan per business. I've seen business owners go to, I think the biggest one I saw was 5 different lenders and applied everywhere. And that is the worst thing you can do. So I would tell you, pick a lender, pick someone you feel really comfortable with and confident that they're going to help you out, and go that route. Because if you apply at multiple spots, it's an awful experience, and it takes a whole lot of work to help you out, and it's probably the worst thing you can do. So some lenders have chosen to not help, but I would tell you the vast majority have, and we all want to help you, get access to these funds. Thanks, Nikki.
All right, the next question is from, I believe this is from social media online. If sole proprietor and was not paying yourself, so no payroll, can you apply for the PPP loan?
Well, it's a tough question, and I'll tell you this. So if it's not there, you can't claim it, right? So if you don't file taxes, it's really hard to justify that your business exists and that you're eligible for the program. So when you look at that tax return, if you're showing a loss, that number on line 7 as a Schedule C filer is negative or 0. Unfortunately, you're not eligible. So we need to be truthful. We need to make sure we're applying as intended. But yeah, if we're not reporting stuff, if it's not there, then it didn't happen in my viewpoint. So if it's more than 1 on that line, you can use those figures. If it's 0 or less, unfortunately, you're not eligible for a Paycheck Protection Program loan.
Okay. All right. next question. Okay, Nikki right now has two side by side. So the first question is, can you file for more than one business? For instance, if you have a nonprofit and a sole proprietorship.
You certainly could, depending on the number of employees that you employ. There are some affiliation rules that you're going to want to consider. If you have multiple businesses and they're all intertwined together, you have your insurance agent and you have 3 different practices. You're going to want to account for that. The affiliation conversation probably is probably a 3-hour long conversation, but we'd be more than happy to help you out. But at a high level, yes, you can apply if you operate a nonprofit and you have a for-profit organization. You definitely are eligible to apply, so long as you meet all the criteria for the Paycheck Protection, whether it be first draw or second draw. But yes, you're more than able to apply.
Okay, and the next part to that question is, if you have a nonprofit, didn't have employees in 2020, but increased the funds to serve, increase the funds served to provide services as a result of the increased need, would you qualify?
That question, Nikki, I'll tell you what, and I would be more than happy to talk you through that scenario. That some of the questions lead you down rabbit holes, to be honest with you. And in your scenario too, there's some dates we want to consider. We want to consider some reasons why that was. So, if there's an opportunity demand to grow your business, we want to talk through that. So if you'd be okay, and I'm sure someone on this call can get you my personal contact information, I'd be more than willing to have that conversation with you. It can be complex. The program itself, you have to have been in operational as of February 15th, 2020. So there's some nuances there, but we'd probably want to investigate your specific situation and talk through why, and understand a little bit more about that to help you make a really good decision. I know that's a horrible answer, but it's the best answer I got right now.
All right, so the next question is from Pat. What, if any, are the major differences between this round of PPP and the last round of PPP, or last year?
What a great question. I'll tell you, I have a couple gray hairs, if you can see my head on your camera, from them. So the biggest differences from the first round to this current round is how you get approved. So last year, if you applied for a Paycheck Protection Program loan in the round 1 or round 2, so April, June, July, until the program ended in August, your lender was attaining or processing your approval in most cases through a separate platform, and then they were providing the loan, they were documenting everything, and they were reporting that to the SBA. And then the news started to come out where some folks used the loan proceeds to buy, I think one story was a Lamborghini, I think I heard, and someone else bought something else, other nonsense that they truly didn't use the money for what it was intended to be used for. So fast forward to 2021, the SBA changed some things, and that how they changed some things is good. It's really good, actually, but it does slow the process down a wee bit. So now when you apply to a lender, you pick the lender, hopefully it's Fulton, and you apply to us. We go through a review of your application. We review everything that you're submitting to us. We're making sure that it makes sense. Those calculations, like I showed earlier, are can be complex, so we want to make sure we're getting the right numbers. Once we do that, then we're submitting your application to the SBA for a final review and approval. So the main difference is that exact fact. Last year, lenders were making an approval and getting access to the funds through SBA, kind of making a reservation for you. This time, the SBA is reviewing the application, making sure that, yeah, this person truly is the person they said they are. There's no shenanigans happening, and we think we're in good spot. So just a little bit of a different process. It slows it down just a wee bit, but that's not a bad thing. I think it's actually been beneficial for this time around.
Very good. I still have questions still coming in. All right, the next question
love
from
them.
B. Laverne Ballard. I see the information as it pertains to Schedule C. What if a person has filed a Schedule K? Are they still eligible for the PPP?
Yeah, so depending on how the business structure is formatted. So if you're a Schedule K filer, you're going to want to, I believe you're going to want to use the standard document, not the Schedule C filer document. So depending on how you file your business and how you're structured, will drive you down that. The Schedule C is only for the Schedule C filer is only for sole prop, self-employed, and independent contractor.
Okay. This question came in. It says, what happens if you realize you have filed out or you filled out the application incorrectly, but the loan application is already ready with the SBA?
So it's a really good question, and it's a really hard answer. And it depends on a few variables. So if your loan's been submitted to the SBA, and you said, hey, I filed as a self-employed individual and I used my my net income, line 31, instead of line 7 in the calculation, you can request, you can withdraw the request through your lender in certain instances. Where it gets really murky is, has your loan been funded? Did you accept the funds? Did you sign the documents? And then did your lender report that to the SBA on what's called a 1502 report? So if that happens, it makes it really, 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 really difficult to go back and change it. As a lender, we're still waiting for a little bit of guidance on how that might happen today. So there are some instances that folks have, hey, you made a mistake. Maybe you were conservative in your number, or you used the wrong number. We all make mistakes, right? So there's some variables out there that will affect, and I'll give you probably a really long-winded answer to your question, affect how you go about that correction. The challenge point, like I said, is if your lender's reported to the SBA and it's been reported to the SBA on their report, it's very, I'm not aware of a scenario where you can fix that quite yet. And we're actively awaiting it, awaiting for that information.
All right. The next question is from Tanya Shadley. Is there anyone available to help fill out the application? And also if there are any fees, if there is a fee to receive help? No,
there's not. So Latoya and Tara are awesome resources. Their numbers are on our slides. They're in our financial centers. They're there to help you out. We also have a support space. So if you have a question and you don't want to talk to Tara or Latoya, I don't know why you wouldn't, because they're awesome. But if you couldn't, or it was late at night and you needed some information, you could submit a request to us and we would reply back to you with some guidance too. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, if you have a tax advisor, if you have a financial advisor, someone that you know and trust, by all means, many of them are very well versed in helping you figure out the amounts too. So while we're here to help also, we definitely want to help, and no, there's absolutely no fee to do so. There are others out there too that can provide similar guidance for you. So please don't hesitate to call us. But no, we don't charge a fee to help you out. We're here to help.
All right, here's a continued question from Tanya as well. Should you apply for funding, receive the money, then apply for forgiveness prior to spending the money in case it is not forgiven?
Tasha, can you ask that again? I think I heard the question, but I wasn't clear.
Should you apply for funding, receive money, then apply for forgiveness prior to spending the money in case it is not forgiven? Let me see if I can get Tanya to make sure.
Hello.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Tanya. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yes, I was just wondering if you should apply for funding. Let's say you approved and you received the funding. Now I have the money. Now I'm not saying I do, but I'm saying, like, okay, I approved, I get the money, then apply for the forgiveness part so that if it's not forgiven as a grant, I'm able to return that money back and not do the loan to pay it back.
Yeah, so that question is a really, it's a loaded question. So when you apply for forgiveness, you have 10 months to do so. And that 10 months starts on the day that you receive your funds. and it's the day you receive the funds, and it's based on your covered period. So if I got the money today, I'm not even sure what day it is, March 11th. If I got the money today, March 11th, I have 8 weeks up to 24 weeks to use those funds. And then I have 10 months from that point of time to apply for forgiveness. So I think if I understand the question correctly, like I wouldn't get the funds and then apply for forgiveness right away. You want to think through strategically on how you operate your business and how do you intend to use those funds. I've heard of businesses using it as a safety net, almost like a reserve just in case, and then didn't need it and wanted to pay it all back. I would tell you, step back, think about how you're going to use it for your business, and again, maybe even looking at some numbers, we can sit down and talk you through what that might look like. So I hope that answers the question, Tanya. It's certainly not, it's not like a quick turnaround. So there's a little bit of time behind it. I see a thumbs up. So I'll give you a thumbs up too. Thank you.
All right, now we have another question. This one's from Phyllis Gordon. How are funds paid to subcontractors counted, and are they subtracted from your gross income, similar to wages paid to employees? So
on that calculation on the application for Schedule C filers, there's two parts of the calculation. One is your gross income, and then you net out your salary, benefits, and wage expense. Those get reduced, and then the number is your number less, or 83, 33, and 33 cents or less, depending on the amount that you claim. And then your employees are factored into that. So it's kind of a two-step calculation process, if that's the question. I think that's how I interpret the question.
Phyllis, is that, you can give us a thumbs up if that's correct. All right, our next question is, do you have to be a Fulton Bank member to apply for PPP through Fulton Bank?
You do. We do require a stipulation from the SBA and Treasury, U.S. Treasuries, that you have to be verified through your lending organizations, through our Bank Secrecy Act, and know your customer, know your account identification process. So that's a requirement of every lender and Fulton Bank. So we do ask that you are a customer of the bank so that we're able to validate your identity and make sure that we're not, giving a loan to someone that we should not be giving a loan to. So it is a requirement.
Okay, this next question, I do believe, I'm not for certain, it came from social media. Do you have to have filed 2019 and 2020? I'm thinking taxes.
That sounds right. So if you're a Schedule C filer, you can use your 2019 tax return, or you can use your 2020 tax return. So we're still a little ways away from the tax filing deadline. If you're like me, you wait until the last second. So you would only have 2019 to file, so to base it on. But if you do have 2020, you could definitely look at both.
All right. The next question is, how different is Fulton Bank's criteria or requirements from other lenders, especially in regards to credit?
Yeah, so I mentioned early on, and a common myth with this is the PPP is not a credit-driven program. It's driven off of your gross income or net income, depending on how you file your taxes, and it's based on payroll. So those are important things to take away. So it's not a credit criteria. It's based on your finances for your business. So it's on how you're on your payroll, based on your revenue stream for your business. So it's outside of that, we adhere to the same guidelines as the SBA does. So lender to lender, I'm not aware of any nuances that would differentiate Fulton or anything that we do differently than any other lender does right now.
How different is Fulton? Oh, I already read that one. Do you have to supply receipts to show how funds are used, or do you just access the business bank statements?
So with anything, the SBA has the right to review your application They have the right to request additional information. As an applicant, you're required to keep supporting information that you used on hand for a period of time beyond the application. So I would tell you that while you may not have to include all of it in your application, you do want to make sure it's right. And remember I mentioned early on, truth, the whole truth, enough about truth, I think is a good thing to go by as you fill out the application. So you do want to keep your records. You do want to keep sound records. And I would say outside of Paycheck Protection, as a business owner, entrepreneur, sole proprietor, you want to keep really good records. I think it's in your best interest. So while we're going to ask you to give us every receipt, like don't bring your shoebox in with all your receipts to Tara or Latoya. Make sure your numbers are correct. And again, go off your tax returns. Make sure you're doing it the right way.
All right. Is there a list of allowable operating costs, or is it based on your industry?
The operating costs are specific to COVID-related items. So and in the application, as you look at that, there's some guidance around how you can use those. So think about if you have an office and you have people coming in to visit you, and you purchase one of those plexiglass screens that you put up in front of your employee to help protect them and help them be safe. Those expenses can be used and calculated into are permissible uses for the program. Perhaps you had to acquire some sort of digital technology to continue to maintain business. So there's a host of reasons. I'm just giving you some more general ones, but there are a bunch of reasons out there to help you understand that process.
Okay. For a client that has a New York state tax return for 2019 as a partnership, now resides in Virginia, which form would he use to figure his calculations?
So it's based on your federal tax filings. It's not based on your state tax filings. So while you're a New York resident, you're going to want to use your 2019, 2020, whichever federal tax forms, not your state.
Okay, that was asked again. Do churches qualify for PPP funding?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
Does church organizations,
yes,
qualify for PPP funding?
I'll say yes, but it also depends on how they're organized too. So there's certain organizations based on the filing of the organization. So 501c3, I believe it's 6 and 19 are eligible. And I'll say, and it's sort of, I guess, hot off the press, but with the new package or the new stimulus package that was signed by President Biden earlier today, I believe there's some provisions inside that have some information regarding PPP that I quite haven't digested yet, but I do think there's some guidance out there for larger nonprofits as I read it, but I haven't seen much more about that than just a blurt in the news.
All right. The next question is, how long do you have to be a bank customer before you can apply for PPP?
Tara, Latoya, could you take that? I hope I'm not boring anybody.
Sure. When you come in and fill out the paperwork and sign onto the documents, it's pretty immediate. Our systems update immediately. So you can technically go home that same day and you can upload the link and be able to apply for the PPP.
All right, and someone is asking for the branch locations. I'm believing for the individuals here.
Okay. So in Virginia Beach, I'm located at 3545 Dam Neck Road. Make sure I wasn't being a bit dyslexic. Yes, 3545 Dam Neck Road, and that is Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I'm in the Lansdowne Commons Shopping Center over by the PetSmart and the Kohl's in Virginia Beach. And you can reach me at 757-498-1498.
Could we get you guys to put your information in the chat for the participants as well?
Sure.
And I'm located in the Stony Point area. I'm at 9030 Stony Point Parkway, Suite 150, Richmond, Virginia 23235. And my direct line is 804-565-4410. And I will put that in the chat as well.
Okay, there is a question on clarification. Do you subtract subcontractors' payments, 1099s, or is it just wages?
So it's just wages. So if you have a 1099, if you have employees that work for you and they're 1099 employees. So for example, I'm a painter and I outsource my work and I outsource it to other painters. I can only claim my employees that are on my payroll. So if I'm a 1099 employee, I'm not eligible in the calculations for Paycheck Protection for the general contractor in that example. So the answer is no. It's only for employees on your payroll. If you do have 1099 employees, you need to deduct those numbers out from your calculations.
Okay. All right. The next question is, can you pay yourself with the PPP funds if you have a business of just one person, the business owner as a contractor? This individual is the owner of an LLC, but they've lost their wages. Or hold on, let me get the individual. If you would like to speak to clarify the question.
Sure, thank you. So I wanted to know prior to applying for the loan if I really did qualify, because I'm understanding a lot of business owners that are contractors providing a service as an LLC, and they've lost contracts, and I would be one of those. So I was wondering if I would be able to qualify to pay myself from the PPP loan, if eligible.
You can. So when you look at the documentation, you're a single member LLC, if I understand correct, Tina. You're going to want to follow the guidance for your using your tax return either from 2019 or 2020. So you're going to want to follow the step by step as a single member LLC, and then that'll kind of give you an indication of your eligibility. So yes, you are able to apply as a sole proprietor, independent contractor. But you're filing as a Schedule C, or I'm sorry, as an LLC organization. So the Schedule C application itself would not be applicable. It's the standard application that you'd want to use to apply for the Paycheck Protection loan.
Thank you. All right. Is there a
Thanks,
time
Tina.
frame your business must be in operation in order to apply?
February 15, 2020, you have to be in operation. If you're February 16, 2020, and you weren't, you're not eligible. So February 15, 2020 is the really important date to keep in mind.
Okay. What documentation is required for the application, or is it just the tax returns?
So depending on the size of the loan that you're applying for, it depends on the information that you're going to need to supply. With the loan request, if your payroll exceeds $150,000, you're going to need to supply the lender with supporting information. And that's for first draw, that's for first draw loan proceeds. Regardless of the amount, you're going to want to provide information that shows how you came about your number. If you're a second draw applicant and your loan exceeds $150,000, you're going to want to provide documentation that shows the lender how did you come up with your number. If your loan amount's under $150,000 and you're applying for second draw loan, you're not required to provide documentation at this time, but you're going to want to hang on to it. You won't keep it in that shoebox I mentioned before, because when you go to apply for forgiveness, you're going to need to provide the lender with that information. So you can see where it gets a little wonky and a little complicated, but that's kind of the overview of what you're going to want to supply. to the lender. And some lenders have different requirements, but you're going to want to be able to provide the lender information that helps them feel comfortable with the amount that you're requesting on your application. It'll only benefit you in the long run.
Okay. All right. The next question is, what form do you use if you're an independent contractor?
So if you're an independent contractor, you're typically filing on a Schedule C. So you're going to look at your personal tax return, and you'll see a Schedule C in that packet of information. It says profit or loss from business. Usually it's a few pages into your tax return. That's the document that you're more than likely going to want to follow. If there's some other nuance there that I'm not aware of, it may affect the application. But a high level answer I would say would be the Schedule C application, the first or second draw.
Perfect. And the very last question that I have is, does an LLC using Form 1065 for tax filing use a Schedule C option or the other?
I believe it's the other, but I don't want to give bad information, and that one has stumped me. So perhaps we could follow back up with you and I can get you a better answer, whoever asked that question, but unfortunately I'm not probably giving you the right answer, and I don't want to give you a bad one.
Okay. All right.
So, Tasha, that was an excellent job with facilitating those questions. And Steve, you get an A for answering all of those questions correct. I must say, you did a wonderful job with that. So at this time—
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. At this time, we would like to turn it over to Linda Melton with Fulton Bank for our closing remarks.
Good evening, everyone. I am Linda Melton. I'm the Community Outreach Officer in Central Virginia, and I am just delighted that you took time this afternoon, this evening, to spend with us and join our discussion regarding the PPP loan. I know that this is a really important subject when it comes to managing your small business, and I certainly, once again, can say I appreciate that you took your time to spend it with us. You know, this webinar would not have been possible without all of the partners. And so I would like for you to know that these are people who can serve as resources for you also. The Metropolitan Business League in Richmond, Virginia, the Women's Business Center, Richmond, VA, the Old Dominion University Women's Business Center, the Urban League of Hampton Roads, the City of Richmond, Virginia, and Black Brands. And we truly appreciate all of our partners. I cannot stress that Latoya Christian and Tara Jones are resources for you. If any the only dumb question is the one that isn't asked. So please feel free to reach out to Tara, to Latoya, and ask your question. And please know that we are here to help you grow and strengthen your business. Again, we appreciate your attending our webinar on the PPP. We want you to know that you have access. Access has been granted to the PPP loan, and at Fulton Bank, we would love to help you grow and strengthen your business. Once again, thank you all for attending, and I look forward to meeting you in person soon and very soon. Thanks again. Good night.